Now that Donald Trump is president, I've seen a lot of situations where immigrants are making increasingly erratic and desperate moves to try to temporarily fix their immigration status to protect themselves from deportation. And unfortunately, I think a lot of these mistakes that these immigrants are making are going to actually increase the chances that they're going to get deported from the United States. So let me tell you a story of a recent encounter that I had during a consultation, which actually ended in the client leaving my office in tears. So she's been here unlawfully present for probably 2 decades. She owns her own business. She's never been convicted of a crime. She pays and files tax returns. She's a net positive to the United States, in my opinion. But around last year, she met with some shady legal service provider who turns out was not even a lawyer. And she was told that she can get her green card, her permanent residence, even though every other lawyer told her that she doesn't qualify for permanent residence. So she ends up applying. She doesn't know what she signed, but she signed a bunch of stuff. And then a few months later, she ended up getting a work permit and permission to travel internationally. It's called advance parole. She got a combination advance parole and work permit card in the mail. And she was really happy. She also simultaneously got a social security card. And these were all legit documents issued by USCIS. And then, several months later, she's in my office and we're talking, and I'm hearing her story, and she's just explaining I applied for my immigration status. I want to see how the case is going. The person I applied with isn't answering my calls anymore. I don't know what's going on with that. Can you take over my case? And she actually saved everything that she had previously submitted. And as I went through it, I was becoming increasingly upset about the conversation that I was about to have with her. And it turns out that she ended up filing a VAWA petition, a Violence Against Women Act petition, based on being the victim of domestic violence to her US citizen spouse. The only problem here was that she's never been married, and she had no idea that she had submitted a Violence Against Women Act petition based on domestic violence. All she knew was that she paid some random person $12,000 in exchange for employment authorization with the future promise of a green card. And she got the employment authorization, but then the person who filed the paperwork disappeared. And now she has a pending VAWA application and a green card application pending with USCIS. Interesting side note here. Several months later, USCIS issued a request for evidence asking for evidence of the domestic violence. And she had no idea what the request for evidence said. She brought it to the service provider. She ended up signing a document that the service provider prepared, and then it was handled. And when I checked the case status, it said that USCIS received her response to the request for evidence and that the case is currently being reviewed. So I went through her file, and she actually had a copy of what she signed. And it was a completely fabricated, 3-page story about her spouse, the circumstances of how they met, the circumstances of the domestic violence, how much she's been victimized, how much she suffered emotionally, that she's been seeing a therapist. It was all completely fake. And she had no idea she did all of this. Now, you might be thinking, that's on her. She should have known to some extent what she was signing. And to an extent, I would agree with you. But I could think back, and there were definitely times where I've asked my clients to just sign stuff that I've prepared. Maybe I shouldn't have done it that way. Maybe I was rushing, and I always have my client's best interests at heart. But I can definitely see that some people would just agree to sign random paperwork, because my clients have regularly agreed to sign random paperwork. I don't do that anymore, and we always keep a copy of your file and give it to you. But anyway, it can happen, so don't judge her too harshly just based on that. The major problem now is that the last time Trump was president, he created a policy that had a major chilling effect that discouraged people from applying for legal immigration petitions. And this policy was, whenever your green card application is withdrawn by you or denied, the next step is for your case to get referred to immigration court, and that for enforcement and removal operation branch of Immigration and Customs Enforcement to issue a notice to appear in immigration court. So your green card gets denied, and a few months later you get a notice that says you are now in deportation proceedings. Show up for your next court date at this date and this time. What will probably happen to this person whom I met with is that her green card application is going to end up getting denied during Trump's presidency. I mean, I would be shocked if she could drag this out for the next 4 years. So assuming it gets denied during the next 4 years, she will most likely end up in removal proceedings. So she filed something trying to shield herself from deportation, and now she's going to end up in removal proceedings because she filed it. Also, she ended up getting scammed out of $12,000, and she's definitely way worse off than had she not filed anything to begin with. In the last few weeks, I've met with countless people who ask me, can I submit an asylum application? Can I submit one of these VAWA applications? I heard a lot of people are doing it in my community. And the answer is, you are probably not on ICE's radar right now. I mean, I don't know for sure. I haven't spoken with you directly, but the conversation I have with a lot of these clients is, you entered the US many years ago. You never applied for any immigration benefits. You've never been convicted of any crime. You're working off the books. There's like no record of you existing here. ICE is probably not going to be able to effectively target you based on the information I have available to me right now. But if you submit this application and it gets denied, which it eventually will, if that denial happens during Trump, you're now increasing the risks that you're going to be physically deported from the United States. What is my advice to people who are listening to this? Number one, don't submit an asylum application more than 1 year after entering the US unless you have a legit fear of returning to your home country and it's based on recently changed country conditions or your personal situation. If you're not sure what that means, speak with an attorney, someone who's actually licensed by their state to give you immigration advice, and preferably an attorney who focuses on asylum-based claims, because asylum law is incredibly complicated and you might be doing yourself a disservice by filing an asylum application if you don't clearly qualify for asylum. The second thing is, if you have never been the victim of domestic violence, do not even consider submitting a VAWA application. It's Violence Against Women Act, but men can also submit the application. It's not worth the temporary employment authorization and advance parole. You can very well end up getting deported by submitting this application if it gets denied during a Trump presidency, and possibly if it's not during a Trump presidency, you could also end up getting deported, especially in the case of the example I gave, where you are so clearly and blatantly committing immigration fraud. There are some grayer areas where you might have been the victim of some cruel treatment by your US citizen spouse. It might not rise to the level of VAWA, like a successful VAWA application. In those situations, speak with an experienced immigration attorney. Make sure, again, that they are actually a licensed attorney, because I'm seeing so many instances of people who claim that they are attorneys who are not actually legally attorneys. If you're not sure, you could probably look it up in your state. I know in New York, if you just Google like New York attorney lookup, you can type the name of the attorney and it'll show up. It'll show any instances of misconduct. It'll show what their attorney license number is. So be sure to do your research before you hire someone that could very much impact the future of your life in the United States. Alright guys, that brings us to the end of today's video. If this helps one person not file a fraudulent asylum or VAWA application, I will deem this video a great success. If you've already submitted something like this and you want to consult with me about what to do moving forward, please feel free to schedule a consultation. Hopefully you have not submitted something like this yet if you don't qualify, and if you want to see if you qualify or not, please schedule a consultation. If you're new to my channel, I focus mostly on family-based immigration. That's marriage to US citizens, petitioning for parents and other family members. So if you're interested in those topics, be sure to subscribe. If you need help with any of those immigration matters, be sure to schedule a consultation so that my team and I can assist you. See you guys next time for another video.